Hi everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. This is Kathy, and I'm so excited to be a part of the encouragement card hop that was organized by Courtney Kreber, Mary Polanco, and Jen from Scrappina Creations. I think it's really awesome that they organized this event to celebrate all kinds of crafters, and the hop is just going to be a whole lot of fun. There's going to be lots of inspiration, and the link for the next video, as well as all the supplies that I use, is in the description below. For my card today, I'll be using the Piggy Pebbles stamp set from My Favorite Things, and also show you how to make quite possibly the smallest pom-poms ever. I started out by stamping the little pig onto a piece of 80-pound Nina Solar white cardstock. I used My Favorite Things Extreme Black Hybrid ink. The coloring for this pig is pretty simple, and the colors will pop up in the top left-hand corner for you. They'll also be linked below in the description, as well as over on my blog. And with that, I'm going to speed up the coloring a little bit and play some music for you to enjoy while I finish up the coloring. After I finished the coloring, I die cut the image with the coordinating die and started working on the rest of the bits and pieces for the card. I used a stitch rectangle die for the patterned paper, 2 circle dies for the yellow cardstock, and another circle die for a piece of white cardstock. I had also cut down a piece of yellow cardstock just slightly larger than the patterned cardstock. I noticed when I cut the circle frames that I didn't have my die quite centered, so it was a little bit wonky. So to fix that, when I adhered the circles to the patterned paper, I left the uneven edge hang off the side, and I did place the pig down just to make sure that I would have enough room for her, and then trimmed off the excess with my paper trimmer. And then I adhered that to the yellow piece of cardstock and set everything aside so I could start working on the pom-poms. To make the pom-poms, you'll need tissue paper, a ruler, a pencil, scissors, and some washi tape. The first thing you want to do is make a little mark on your tissue paper so that you end up with strips that are 1 inch wide by 3 inches tall. They don't have to be cut perfectly straight. You will need a total of 6 strips. You'll use 3 strips for each pom-pom. For my pom-poms, I decided to do different colors, so I had the turquoise and the white. And after I cut the first 3 strips, I just took one of the turquoise strips to get 2 more turquoise strips, so I would have a total of 6 strips. I had my ceiling fan on and the air conditioning kept kicking on, so tissue paper was flying all over the place. So I finally got smart and turned off the ceiling fan as well as the air conditioning so that I wasn't chasing tissue paper all over. The next thing that you want to do is you want to stack up your tissue paper, and again you'll have 3 pieces per stack. Fold them in half, and when you do fold them in half, you want to have the crease at the top pretty crisp. You don't necessarily need to use a bone folder, just press it down really well. Then you want to cut strips up to the fold. You don't want to cut all the way up. I left maybe 1/8 of an inch at the top. I wasn't worried about the strips being perfectly even or the same width. I just wanted to cut some fringe. Next, you repeat the same thing with the other 3 pieces of tissue paper, and as you saw, they weren't even, so I just cut the excess off the top there. The tissue paper doesn't have to be exactly perfect. there's going to be a little bit more trimming towards the end. After you cut the fringe, you want to lay out the pieces of tissue paper, one on top of another. And if you do use two different colors of tissue paper, you want to alternate the colors, like I did there with the turquoise, the white, and then the turquoise. The next step is to roll the tissue paper, and you want to roll it sort of tight, but not too tight. And make sure that the little fringe stays out on the end as you're doing the rolling. The next step is to twist it in the center. And I'll set it down here in a minute so you can see how far I twisted it. You just want to have some of the fringe kind of poofing out on either end. The next thing I did was I got a piece of washi tape, and it doesn't matter what color washi tape you use, it's not going to show in the end. The washi tape that I have is pretty thin, but I still ended up cutting it into a thinner strip just so it wasn't too thick. And if you don't have washi tape, you could use Scotch tape, painter's tape, any type of single-sided tape that you may have in your stash. Next, you want to fold the tissue paper in half, and you want to pinch the fold really, really well to make sure that it's tight, and then wrap the washi tape around the bottom of your pom-pom. So right now it just kind of looks like a tassel more than a pom-pom, but once you fluff out the tissue paper pieces, it looks a lot more like a pom-pom. You'll repeat the same thing with the other 3 strips of tissue paper. Lay them out flat, roll them up, twist them, fold it in half, and wrap washi tape at the end. Next, I wanted to make sure that the pom-poms weren't too big for Pebbles the pig. So I pulled them out like a tassel and trimmed off just a little bit and poofed them up, placed them down to see if they would be covering too much of her face, which I thought that particular pom-pom did. So I just trimmed a little bit more off the edge, re-poofed it, placed it down to see if I would like that size better, and I did. The easiest way to get the second one was pull it into the shape of a tassel, and I cut off a chunk off the end because I knew I was going to cut quite a bit off. And then I just kind of held it up against the first one just to kind of eyeball it, and trimmed off as much as I needed to. To adhere the pom-poms to Pebbles the pig, I reshaped them into the tassels, added a drop of liquid glue to her hooves, and pressed them into place. And I do recommend that you use a nice strong liquid glue for this to make sure that they really stay put. I set that off to the side so the glue could dry really well, and worked on the rest of the bits and pieces of the card. I stamped the sentiment, "I'm rootin' for you," using VersaFine Onyx Black ink onto a piece of yellow cardstock. There I'm kind of figuring out if I want to have it go all the way across, and I decided that I wanted to do a fishtail banner. So I trimmed that down to size. Next, I adhered the patterned paper panel to the front of a top folding A2 size note card. And I did let the glue dry overnight. I don't think that that is totally necessary, but I wanted to make sure that it was really, really dry. And to floof up the pom-poms, I held the base of the tassel where the washi tape is. I kind of held that down with my thumbnail and folded the tassel back on itself. Then I fluffed up the pom-poms to make them poofy, trimmed off a few straggly pieces that were still kind of covering her face a bit too much. And I wanted to have her popped up on the card, so I applied foam tape to the back of her and attached her to the front of the card. I also wanted to have the sentiment popped up, so I applied some foam tape to the back of the fishtail banner and adhered that above the circle. And the final step to add a little bit of movement was to add little dashes with a fine tip black marker by her foot and around the pom-poms. That finishes up my card for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've not yet subscribed, I'd love it if you would. And don't forget to ring the bell so you're notified every time a new video is posted. As a reminder, the link for the next video on the hop is in the description below. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.